Brazil renews push for IMF reform, sees Brics alternative. There is rebellion going on right now, outright. They're putting it in the media. Listen, Western financial systems are in trouble. IMF no longer has the power that they used to have. Okay. And see how they like to mention it? They could have just said Brics renews push for IMF reform. Nobody likes the International Monetary Fund. No one likes the European Central Bank. Nobody likes the Fed or SWIFT. They don't like these systems. They use these systems or use them because it was necessary. But they're becoming, well, we're coming to a point where they're not necessary. Hence, the new financial system being in prime position. Now, I don't know how far they're going to go, but they're making a huge push right now. Let's scroll down here. I'm going to read this to you. It says Brazil is bringing an urgent message, urgent, to next week's meetings of the International Monetary Fund. Western-backed lenders must give developing nations more say if they want to remain relevant. That's a threat. They're serious. So this is why they lay back on the common Brics currency promotion, at least when they're putting information out to the West. Because if you look at local news sites, like in some of the Brics nations, they have been inundating their people with a common Brics currency message, as though they are conditioning their people's minds to get ready for a common Brics currency. And I have an article here. We're going to get to that in the next chapter. And I'm going to show you, right? They're preparing their people for a common Brics currency. Now, no one knows when that may happen, but the possibility of it happening is very, very high. And until then, they're going to continue to transact in local currencies. Now, what does that mean for the new financial system? XRP, XLM, Algo, if they're wise, and I think that they are quant, they can connect all of these things together, and their time is coming. It's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of watching the events unfolding and then being able to measure when these things are going to occur. Each person's going to have a different measurement. Of course, is what I think. But let's keep going here. Let me read that one more time. Western-backed lenders must give developing nations more say if they want to remain relevant. And that leads to another thought that people have to keep in mind. A lot of these so-called developing countries, they're sitting on a lot of resources. And I know a lot of people, they doubted some of the rebellion that's going on. There's a multitude of different types of rebellion. There's policy rebellion like this going on. And a lot of these countries rebelling against policy, Western policy, are sitting on a ton of resources. There's also physical rebellion going on, like what's going on in Africa. But here's what has happened. Unlike in the past, where that rebellion was stopped, it has stuck. It has continued. So now what really that boils down to is those people of those places are now in control of the resources, as opposed to external Western forces like the United States or France, et cetera, et cetera. That is a changing of the guard. They know they have power. So if they want to initiate a one Brics currency, they can. They can wield that power as of now. If it changes in the future, then it changes. I can only tell you what's going on now. But that's why they can say must give developing nations more say if they want to remain relevant. It's a similar mentality to what Saudi Arabia is encompassed with right now, where they're like, well, okay, you don't want to show us respect. We're not going to work with you. We're going to make some oil cuts. That's going to affect you dramatically, but we're going to make a ton of money, but we're going to transact in local currencies and such. We're going to be open to new things and turn our backs on the West. A lot of countries are going that route. So the new financial system is becoming more key with each day. If you're watching the global economic developments, all of that matters to the deployment and the timeline and the price of these particular assets, if they can pull off what it is that they're designed to do. Not financial advice, of course, just my humble opinion. It says here, a major redistribution of IMF quotas to correct the underrepresentation of large emerging market economies has been a decades-old demand from Brazil and other key developing countries. But The price of inaction is growing higher, according to Tatiana Rosito, International Affairs Secretary at the Brazilian Finance Ministry. So this is coming right from the top. Quote, the developing world has not stayed still while reforms stall, unquote. She told Bloomberg News in an interview. Quote, the creation of the new development bank by the Brics and the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank show that emerging countries are looking for ways to finance their own development. The world is changing right now. This is huge. This is a huge statement. We are living through history right now. Who knows where it all ends up? I only know what is right now. President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva will use the power of his Group of 20 presidency to make a stronger push for reforming the IMF and the World Bank. They're against all of them, just as he called for changes at the United Nations Security Council last month. It will be up for Finance Minister Fernando Haddad to take his message to the multilateral lenders at Marrakesh next week. Who's deep in Latin America? Who was deep in Brazil? Algo was deep in Brazil. Stellar was deep in Brazil. And then Ripple tried to creep into Brazil a little bit after them. I'm not sure what came of that. But the bank coins are deep in Brazil. They have great relationships in Brazil, especially Algorand through all of Latin America. Algorand has great relationships because of koi banks. That could be key. You think they don't know that? They're keeping quiet on a lot of these developments because the implications are huge. They don't want to step on any toes, but it's there. Now, I want to show you this, right? This is an article. See, we don't, now I don't speak for the entirety of the West, but the media, unfortunately, I wish it wasn't like this, but the media is so curated. They only show people what they want to show them. But in the rest of the world, they're getting inundated with this type of news here from TehranTimes.com. I want to read this little tidbit. It says about the common Brics currency and the changing from a system based on SWIFT to a Brics-based system, which would mean what for the world? That would mean a multipolar world. Definitively. It says here, this process won't happen overnight, but the proposals to have, for instance, a Brics currency is viable, which is in the interest of Brics members to avoid being subject to the US dollar domination. SWIFT is a component of the global banking system and is used by banks that we know. Let's skip that part. Then they talk about the Brics meeting last time. It says, then they mention Brazil. Brazil has also strongly pushed for a common currency. They know the IMF is not going to bend to their will. They haven't thus far. Why would they do it now? The minds haven't changed. So why would their methods, their ways change? The only way that change occurs is if minds change, right? So they're looking forward to the IMF not changing, the World Bank not changing, so that they can justify even further this push towards a common Brics currency, which once again, Brics nations in the West still have to transact. They will need the new financial system in the middle. That will cause an explosion, the likes of which no one has ever seen when it comes to these different assets. Stellar's definitely in play. Ripple, XRP is definitely in play. Algorand is in play. Quant, we'll see. You got a few other utility coins out there that now want to play. They want to play, but I'll leave that up to you to figure out who they are. It says analysts say the idea is a logical process in the face of what has been taking place in the world. At the present time, the United States is a major absorber of capital internationally, but it is in so much debt that it is unable to finance its own investment by itself. Look how I told people that the debt was going to come in. It was going to come back to bite the West. And it is. You cannot accrue that much debt. China made a statement last year saying something, I'm paraphrasing, of course, but that, they would start looking at the United States with a sort of a downward eye. I'm paraphrasing because of how much debt the United States has. You can look that up for yourself, right? But look how they're wielding that as a weapon against the United States now, especially as they're starting to contemplate the high likelihood that they could greatly diminish the power of the dollar by simply not using it. Dollar dumping, that has been major The US is increasingly dependent on the survival of its own economy from the financial intake and investments of other countries. You see that? This was always going to come into play. A lot of people are not taking that into account. Money that belongs to other countries and which can be invested domestically and help develop the domestic services of nations rather than being sent to the US. So I wanted to put that on your table. Times are changing. Times are changing. There's a lot happening. And this is another reason why the acceleration is happening. Once again, if you didn't see those members only videos, check those out. All right. If you want a little bit more global economic news, I'm going to put my other channel's link up here. A lot of people have been asking about this. My other channel is up here. All right. You can subscribe to that if you like. A little bit more serious over there. We're dealing with a lot of global economic and financial news over on that channel. But all of this ties into the new financial system and having a firm understanding of just how potent everything is that we're involved in. So now that you have that information, what are you going to do with it? I know what I'm going to do with it. So until next time, let's get to the money.